on the final week, and we're going to be talking about collecting data for useful key performance indicators, right? I mean, I know Larry went over last week with you job costing and knowing your numbers, but then it goes to the next step too, right? Like knowing your numbers is obviously important, but knowing which numbers matter more than other ones is even more important, right? A lot of times, right? We need to know what we're tracking to make sure that we're tracking the things that will actually make our business better in some way, right? And for most of us, that's either, driving revenue or lowering expense in some way. It's usually some version of one of the two of those things, right? So, people talk about KPIs. I remember when I first heard the term KPI, I'm like, what the heck's a KPI? Like, I don't know what a KPI is, right? And it stands for key performance indicators, right? So for every one of us, we all have a business that runs on certain things that matter more than others to us, right? So we need to figure out which of these numbers are actually the numbers that work for us to build the business that we desire or to drive the growth of that business, right? So, I was watching, does everybody know who Tommy Mello is? Yeah, most of us. Okay, for those who don't know, so Tommy Mello, he's a friend of mine and Larry's. He started a garage door business called A1 Garage. I believe now they're in 25 states, privately owned until recently. Like Tommy owned the whole thing, and he just sold a portion of it to private equity. But he grew a garage door business, and to put this in some perspective, most garage door companies are pretty small. It's kind of chucking a truck, chucking two trucks. And Tommy grew to 25 states and doing $200 million a year in revenue doing garage doors, right? Which in that industry is not easy to do, right? So Tommy's on the ball. And Tommy gave a talk at an Inner Circle conference with Howard. I've seen Tommy speak, I don't know, 5-6 times. And he did something that was really interesting. He talked about KPIs. I actually took this picture from the audience that day. And he was like, I've been figuring this out. I've been getting a lot of help and coaching from like private equity companies. And he's like, especially for any service business, he believes that you could run almost any service business with these 4 KPIs right here. Number 1, I'm going to actually not go in the direction that he did. I'm going to go a different one. The first one would be booking rate. Right? So when a call comes in, how many of those calls am I booking to get somebody to that front door? Right? That is crucial, because if we're spending money on Google ads or pay-per-click or being out in the community like Kent is, like walking around handing out cards and kissing babies and shaking hands, we want to know that when those calls come in, that we can turn those calls into at least a potential booking, right? So booking rate, number 1, turning that call book to a face-to-face meeting, right? And then how many of those meetings do we turn into jobs? Denver just alluded to it. He was out pricing. So Denver needs to know, what is my face-to-face conversion rate? If I go to 10 bids, how many of those bids am I selling? Which leads me to the next one. Average ticket. If I go to 10 bids, how many am I selling, and at what average price am I selling those, right? So the third one would be average ticket. And then the last one is cost per acquisition. How much did it actually cost our company every time that the phone rang and we go through these other 3 KPIs? How much did it cost us to get that work? So I know in our carpet business, because we had to, for a new client acquisition, and this would have been even like 12 to 15 years ago, our average cost per acquisition was about $120. Right. So for all the advertising that we were doing, to get me or Larry or one of our estimators to a front door and sell them, it cost us 100. So every doorbell I rang was $120, right? So if I have a conversion rate of 70%, that means I lost $360 because I couldn't convert those other three, right? So it's 120, 120, 120, 120, right? So we want to know how much it costs us to get to the door. But I agree with Tommy. I think that you probably can. I mean, look, are these the only numbers that he knows? Well, of course not, right? But his point is these are the four key. If he can figure out how to get the phone to ring, how to get the CSR to book a face-to-face estimate, how to train his estimators or technicians, how to sell that, and then at a high ticket price, then that high ticket price will more than carry the cost of that cost to get all of that to happen, right? That's the waterfall effect for us, right? Does anybody here tracking those four consistently? Will anybody here after tonight be tracking these four consistently, right?
Yes, we will be.
It's the right answer, Ken.
Thank you.
Yeah, look, the more we know, the more data we have, the better decision making we can do in our company, right? So I pulled up a list of people that have either coached me or I respect, like Tommy, and I pulled up like I know that these people just from going to trainings and actually being coached by two of three, right? I know the numbers that they really care about. So I thought we could kind of go through this, right? So Tommy, we already talked about, he cares about average ticket, face-to-face conversion rate, booking rate, and cost per acquisition. Now I know Kent and Maddie are part of Violand, and Larry and I were part of Violand back in the day, right? Violand, which is a kind of a restoration and plumbing management company who talks a lot about knowing your numbers. They like to do things more by the profit and loss statement, right? So their big things, Chuck always pushed on us. What are my cost of goods sold? What is the percentage of the total ticket that I have that it costs me to do that work, right? Because we know this, like if I have a building and I have 10 vans and I have all this overhead, right? I have insurance and I have office staff I need to pay. And like those fixed expenses, they don't really change much, right? Like there's not much I can do. You know, the cost of a building is the cost of a building. The price on a van payment is the price on a van payment. Those don't, there's not much we can do with that. Where we can gain ground is in our cost of goods sold, meaning direct labor, materials, fuel. But then look at that. Can we really do a ton with fuel? It's still gas is the price gas is, right? And we're going to drive however far that job is. Can we really do much with materials? No, because the materials are going to, I mean, yeah, we can go have several vendors and try to get a good price for a good product for vendors. So when we look at cost of goods sold, what we're really looking at is our direct labor cost, right? How efficiently can we do this job? And I'll give an example, and I think I've said this before. Like, if you want to see my head explode, watch me when three guys hop in a van and drive to the Home Depot for a box of screws, right? Like, all of a sudden, all of the work stopped on that job. I have three people that I'm paying, you know, with labor rate, with labor burden, 30, 40 bucks an hour or whatever. And all of a sudden it's going to take them an hour and a half to 2 hours to go buy one box of screws, right? So the point is, and the point that I learned at Violand is when we job cost, when we track these numbers job by job, those guys start to get more efficient because we can see when all three of them left and went to Home Depot and ate hot dogs and vaped in the parking lot and bought a box of screws, right? It shows up in their numbers because their labor is going to be too high, right? So one of the things that Chuck always pushed was cost of goods sold, direct labor percentages, right? Kent, you know that from going to Violan, like that. Those are two big things that are really, really important for us to make sure as a restorer, we're making money. But you know what? It doesn't matter what trade, it's all the same, right? Labor is the one that can get away from us. And Chuck always preached this to us. And you can see I have 40, 30, 30, and 40, 20, 20. Right. And what he means by that is the percentage of each thing on a P&L that it should look like for a business. Right. So if I'm running a business out of my garage at home, so I don't have a lot of overhead, I don't have a building, I don't have, a lot of the things that, a larger business would have. Chuck would say that you should have 40% cost of goods sold. Right. So what do I mean by that? If I have $1,000, if Denver went out today and sold $1,000 job, the breakdown, according to Chuck, would be Denver has $400 to do the work, right? He has $400 in cost of goods sold to get that done. He's going to have another $300 in just overhead, his van, his equipment, his, all the things that, he in business insurance, cell phones, marketing expense, right? He's going to have $300 in that. And ideally, as a home-based business, he would have $300 left over for net profit after he's paid everything else, right? For a larger business, like, most of the people here, it would be more like 40, 20, 20. So I sold $1,000 job. I have $400 to do it. And then, I'm sorry, it should be 40, 40, 20. That's a typo. And then it's going to cost, because I have a building and all that, another 40%, another 400 towards my overhead, my fixed overhead, 20% net profit. That net profit should truly be a net profit, meaning everybody, including the owner, got paid a salary or their wage before the 20%. Right? I see this way too often, especially in smaller operators. They actually spend 80% and now they're trying to pay themselves out of that 20%. But that means we're not working efficiently, or we have too big of expenditure. We want to be able to pay ourselves and then still have 20% left over as a net profit. Does anybody have any questions about this? Because I know that can be different. Does anybody do anything differently? No?
No, we try and run by the profit first philosophy through our accountant or our bookkeeper. She's
Okay.
first authorized or trained. So,
and then Denver, so you basically in profit first, you're putting money away from tax for every job, for every $1,000 you make, right? You're putting money away for taxes, putting money away for certain expenses, putting money away for yourself, right? That's
all
what we're
pre-planned.
talking about.
Yep. It's all pre-planned.
Okay. Yep. I like that. Perfect. Okay. And then Howard Partridge, I'll move on to him. Howard was my coach as well, in addition to Chuck. Howard is more of a sales coach in many ways than an operations coach. And Howard's big thing was sales by referral source. Connor and I just had a whole hour-long meeting about a course that we're putting together where we're talking about business development reps, right? And by a business development rep, like Larry's not here, I wish he was, Larry's whole job was how much revenue is he bringing in per referral source? Are his referral sources bringing us the kind of revenue that we need based on how much time, energy, effort, and resource he's putting into them, right? So if he's visiting a plumbing shop over and over and over and over and over and over and over for a long time, is that person bringing us enough money to warrant him to keep going? Or is there enough upside that even though we haven't gotten our return yet, is it worth continuing to go? Because if we can get them turned over, it could be a lot of money. Like, I'll give an example. So we track sales by referral source very closely. And Larry was going to a sizable plumbing company for 2 years, every single month for 2 years. And I'm adding that up going, it's this much time, it costs this much per stop. Like, why are we still going here? And then, Larry's thing was like, look, it's a judgment call. Yes, I have $0 from this and I've spent X, but if we can get in, it's a calculated risk, then the payoff's going to be really big. And sure enough, slightly after the 2-year mark, we got our chance. And the next thing you know, Larry's bringing in about $2 million a year off that referral source. It took him 2 years to get, right? So the numbers don't always tell the whole picture. We have to read into the numbers, right? So I'm looking at Larry going, you've got $20,000 or $30,000 into visiting these guys for 2 years. What are we doing here? But Larry's saying, well, wait a minute, if we can get it, what's the upside, right? And we have to make a call. The other thing is sales by category. We need to know where the money's coming from. I know we've got a bunch of restorers in here. Is it coming from plumbers? Is it coming from insurance agents? Is it coming from adjusters? Is it coming from third-party administrators? Like, where is the money that we're getting coming from? So, Marty, can you hear us? Are you with us? I know you're driving.
Yes, I can hear y'all, but I'm still
Okay.
typing.
Okay, that's fine. Do you guys know by category, where the money comes in for your roofing business? Like, does it come from, other general contractors? Does it come in from property managers? Like, how do you guys break that down?
So well, we do mainly roofing and
Yep, I knew that. So does it come straight from customers, or do you have referral partners that send you work, right? Like, so does a general contractor building a house and call you and say, can you put the roof on? Or does a customer, like, are you marketing to the general public and then they call because they see an ad? Like, where does the work come from?
generally it's from the customers directly.
Okay.
We've been in business for over 10 years now, so there's a lot of repeat customers.
Okay.
But roofing is not something that's done on a home other than, maybe 2 or 3 times throughout your life.
Right. Yeah. So
But,
you're always having to market to get new clients.
yeah, and we're actually working on hiring a marketing director right now, to kind of focus more on, I guess everybody knows that a lot of things is changing and a lot of things are going online, and we're trying to put our focus there because it's always been more door knocking or referral based.
Right. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. So if Marty's looking at her numbers, she could be like, we got this percentage of work from knocking on doors. We got this percentage by repeat customers. We got this percentage by referrals from customers, right? That's what we're talking about. It's knowing, because if I know where the work comes from the most, I can go try to get more of it, right? Like, I don't want to keep marketing to the thing that doesn't work. I want to market to the things that work, right?
Yeah,
So,
which we do track that by, door knocking, online leads. We get some leads through our website, and a few through a local weather app.
there you go. Perfect. That's exactly what I was talking about, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Josiah, I know the work just flows to you. You've told me in the past. Like, where do you guys track where the work comes from, though? Like, does it come from word of mouth? Does it come from,
No,
a certain person that
I just about 2 weeks ago started tracking that. So
okay. Yeah,
I don't have
that's
a
good.
record on it, but yeah, so now we are tracking it.
Okay. Awesome. Great. That's progress, man.
It's
Good for you.
progress.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Kent and Maddie, how are you guys tracking where the work's coming from by category? Who tracks that?
We have a spot in our CRM or our job doc system to actually track where it's coming from, and we're doing referral programs with the plumbers next door and as well as a couple of other companies out my BNI groups. That all gets indicated in job docs. Now,
Okay.
the one thing that I don't have that I know the program does, and I haven't figured it out, so I do all of that manually, is take individual information and then match it up to the dollar amounts that we've collected. So that's how I figure it out, and I have a spreadsheet on it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Phil, you guys have been in business for a long time. Are you tracking sales by category? And if so, how?
Did you say Phil?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I knew had been a bill on this at one point. Yeah, we track it. I wouldn't say we,
Hi, Lori.
I didn't know you could see me, sorry.
Oh yeah, I see. We all see you.
Oh,
yeah,
True, gone.
we're pretty specific on where the referrals come from. So we keep track and
Okay.
you keep them, right? Yeah. So Lori keeps track of them.
So Lori, you keep track by category, I'm assuming, like property managers and realtors, like, is that how you do it?
yeah, we use Service Monster, and Service Monster has a place where you can put in where the referral came from. And I'm in a lot of networking groups and stuff. So right in the beginning, I gave them a list of every place a referral could come from, and every phone call we get, we ask them how they heard about us.
Right.
And
Perfect.
then that goes in when we schedule a job.
So then the follow-up question I would have is, how often do you return to that to see where to put your marketing efforts and dollars? Like, oh, property managers give us the most work versus I keep marketing to, I don't know, I'll just say BNI group and I'm not getting anything from it. Like, when do you and how often do you go back and analyze the data that you collect?
I actually do that. I'm gonna say once a quarter, because I am in
Okay.
BNI and I have to track my income earned in their system. So I usually ask for a report then. And I get a lot from the women's networking groups I'm in, and I like to be aware of who actually used us. So when I see them, I can thank them and not act stupid.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, because that's the thing. Like, we can collect data, but if we don't analyze and use the data, it's not very valuable to us, right? We could spend a lot. Like, I've had clients that, like, they collect tons of data, but then they don't review it, right? And that's a waste of time, right? So, Victor, what about you? Do you track your sales by referral source and by category? You're muted, Victor.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we hear you now.
I am like the guys before. I'm sorry. Who was it? Phil?
Phil and Lori. Yeah.
Yes, Phil and Lauren. We are using Household Pro, and the steps are the same. We do a lot of repeats, carpet cleaning, upholstery cleaning. We are there once a month, twice a month. I mean, once a year or twice a year. I think 80% of our income is repeat customers. Everything else is referral sources, flooring stores,
Right.
interior designers, same customers that we have passing our name around. We're using Howard 10% referral fee certificates.
Yep.
So yeah, we're keeping track of all that. Again, Household Pro really help us a lot.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Andy, what about you? I don't know if you're on the truck or you hear me or.
Yeah, I'm here. You talking about tracking? Is that what the question is?
Yep. Yeah. Or how are we tracking our sales by referral source, by category, and how often are we looking at it and then using it to market?
Just like you mentioned, I know we are tracking. We have a spreadsheet to track our referral, where we're getting our jobs from, and the amount and stuff. But I haven't really looked at it for a while, so yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay. No, that's fine. All right. And then I threw a couple more in on the end, like additional ideas of things that I used to track as well that I found important to me. Number one for me was how many 5-star online reviews are we getting? Right. I was in California with our service business, and Yelp was the king when it came to social proof that we were good. So I used to always track like how many jobs and what percentage are we getting 5-star reviews. I didn't consider anything 4 stars or less to be a good review, right? If it's 5-star or nothing. So, we were trying to teach our guys all the time, the same stuff that we teach in Super Tech University, how to get a 5-star review, how to ask for one, how to get the client to want to give us one, right? So I always felt that also that was a good indicator whether the client was happy or not, whether they were willing to give us a 5-star review, right? I'm going to skip one for a second. Employee turnover rate. That was a really crucial thing for me in the restoration space for a technician who was certified. The average cost of replacing that person was about 1.6 times their yearly income, right? So think about that. If I lose a couple, that I'm losing a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of training time to lose one, right? So if I had an employee, sorry, here. If I had employees, I wanted to keep them, right? And a good internal thing for me to know whether I was creating a company where people wanted to work and the culture was good and they felt cared for was my employee turnover rate. How often are they leaving me? The average in my industry for a technician, for a mitigation technician, is 6 months and they leave. And, my goal was always to try to keep them 2 years or more. And by doing that, I'm saving a lot of money, right? And a lot of headache and a lot of heartache. So I wanted to create an environment where people wanted to stay. So that was a key metric for me. And then the last one, to be honest, and nobody really talks about this much in our world, which I don't know why, but it's often not talked about. But I think this is the most important metric for almost every business, regardless, is income per employee or revenue per employee, right? So if I have, 100 employees, how much am I making for every one of those? Because income by employee actually takes all of my expenses into account, not only my labor and my payroll, but my building and my vans, and it takes everything into account. So like, to give an example, this number is probably not totally correct, but it's close. I believe Apple has the highest income per employee in the world, and I think it's about just shy of $3 million per employee, right? And I mean, is that doable for companies like ours? No, of course not, right? A good heating and air conditioning company revenue per employee would look somewhere in $350,000 to $500,000 in revenue per employee per year, right? Carpet cleaning, that might be 100,000 per year, right? Like every business is a little bit different, and you could find out in your whatever it is that you do what a good revenue per employee is through associations or whatever. But I think I was always shooting in my carpet cleaning. I wanted to be doing I wanted better than average. I wanted to be doing 200,000 per employee at least minimum for my carpet division. Restoration was higher, right? So you have to figure out what works in your industry, and that is a really good benchmark to know if you're going to be profitable or not. I have a friend that has a 9-figure business per year, so hundreds of millions. His number one metric is revenue per employee, because he has a lot of employees to do that much revenue, right? So is anybody using anything different than what I have listed out consistently? No. All right, it's time to get real. We have like 20 minutes left or something. Like, how many people are, look, I would love some honesty here. How many people are doing any of this? All right, Phil, can you tell us we'll go around the room real quick. And look, if the answer is we don't, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But the question is, are there a couple that you could benefit from looking at, right? So Phil, what are some of the metrics that you guys look at consistently? And more importantly, what prompted you to look at them and why?
Well, I think my days at Strategies for Success kept on coming back to me, and Chuck taught the cost of goods, the profit and loss, and how to do costing that way. So I would always use that so I could price a job, not track a job, because there would be some times when I didn't know what I needed to do to price it. You can come up with square footage, but that's just a dart shot. I wanted to know if I was going to make money or not. It took me a long time to do that.
Sure.
Because after a while I said, we're not making very much money, and this is the hardest job we do. So when I started doing that, then we made production sheets that would track everybody's time on the job, how long their engine ran to clean the job, and the job cost. And we continued to do that. The downside of that is we don't do much with it. And so now I'm actually, as we speak, I've been formulating since the first of the year to track all of that. We've known through Service Monster, we can quickly find out how much each technician makes. So that was a benchmark. You'd see a guy and you go, well, he doesn't seem like he does much. And then you look at his numbers and you're going, well, he's getting something done. So it's that kind of made us feel like we could know what our guys did. So I really like that part. But now my next step is to try to figure out what's my most profitable job, and what, some of those jobs that we don't like to do, are they making us money? Should we raise our price? So on and so forth.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Yeah, I'm going to second some of the stuff that you said, Phil, just from my own experience. So like we used to do air duct cleaning, and part of it was dryer vent cleaning, which is the most miserable thing to try to make money on in the world. And, finally, because we were doing exactly, Phil, what you said, we realized that we literally could not turn a profit cleaning a dryer vent. Like, couldn't do it. Like, I tried a million different ways. Finally, I'm just like, we don't do this anymore. Like, we just don't do it, because I would have to charge so much. And the reason being is so many dryer vents have like 19 turns in them, and then they break when you're trying to, like, it's just nightmarish, right? So we're like, okay, we don't do that anymore. And then the other thing is, we had estimators who would sell by giving a lot away. And that doesn't work, right? Like they'd be like, oh, I'm so good at sales, my close rate's 80%. It's like, yeah, but you gave like a third of the actual job away, right? So, we started, and this is the other part, Phil, that I was going to say to you is, I'm a big believer in public accountability. I grew up playing sports, and when you play sports, they put your statistics everywhere for everybody to see. So all of a sudden, it's like everybody in the world knows whether I'm performing well or not. So what we used to do was, nowadays we'd probably use big screen TVs and have a spreadsheet up or whatever. But back in the day, we just took art tape and made big whiteboards, and everybody's numbers went up. So all of a sudden, if the estimator's not charging enough and giving too much away, it shows. If the guys are taking too long on a job, it shows. And we were gamifying that with bonuses to make sure that we're going to make our numbers, right? So that's something that you can do to use your numbers, is to make some of the numbers public, or to gamify some of the numbers. Anybody ever do the Great Game of Business? That's all that is. The Great Game of Business is gamifying your numbers, right? So who else? Kent and Maddie, what numbers are you guys tracking, and how do you use them as a company?
Yeah, so I know for sure that Chuck and Tammy do track numbers, and I know that Kent does, but I'm not entirely sure exactly what they're tracking. I'm sure they're tracking it all, to be honest with you. But
Sure.
I just haven't dabbled in that yet.
Okay, that's fine. Kent, you want to chime in a little bit on what you and Chuck are tracking and then how you're using it?
So our latest addition to regular tracking is we're tracking our SEO. And the last month that I've spent about $3,000 on Google ads, we've actually gotten some good money off of it. So it finally is starting to kind of pay off. But previously the tracking that we were doing on it was not, we weren't making any money using that. We did find that the GSLA or Google service ads are making us no money. So that's one of the biggest things that we just started doing. We're getting good hits off our website, all of that. We were hitting a slow spot over here where our phones weren't ringing, and we had to try to figure out if we were spending our money where we needed to. And
Right.
we're learning that we're actually going to be moving some money around in the SEO program to get away from the Google service GSLA ads and putting them more to doing other stuff. Like we might be able to do some more public events and stuff like that instead. So
okay, yeah,
that was one of my little projects the last couple of weeks. So last couple of months. So everything else gets tracked as far as like our P&L and all and whatnot. I mean, we have one sales guy, and we track all of his stuff, and he has goals that he has to meet, and he came really, really close last year, So
yeah.
we're doing what we can
Well, that's
to
the
help
thing.
him by tracking that to make it better and make it a better opportunity for him to get a bonus. So
Look,
yeah.
Everything measured improves. Period. Right? Like if we're not tracking it, it's hard to get better at it, right? Like because just like Phil said, like, oh, I have this perception that this person doesn't get much done. And then I start tracking it and you're like, oh wow, he's one of my most productive technicians, right? Like until Phil really tracked that data, he doesn't really know, right? We're guessing. Look, data trumps feelings every time, right? Data is more important than how we feel about things. I want to get a shirt that says data is greater than feelings. Somebody should make that shirt, right? Because I'm the same way as everybody else, right? Like I could think this one thing and then actually start tracking it, and it could be completely different than what I thought it was, right? Like I've had that happen so many times. So, we want to collect information because most of us here, I think, have a tool to do it with Service Monster, House Call Pro, Service Titan, Job Docs, whatever. But we need to stop for a minute and take a breath from the action of business and sit down and go, what are the key things that I need to be tracking and go do it, right? It's hard to do. I can't tell you how many times at midnight, Larry and I in the early days would be out on the job and Larry would look at me and be like, well, we're super busy. Do you think we're making any money? Right? I don't know. We don't have time to sit and take a look at the information, right? So we had to learn to make time. Connor, what about you? We haven't called on you yet tonight. What do you think? What do you think are the key indicators for you at your dad's company to track? I'd be curious to hear this.
Yeah, one of the biggest ones is how many flyers do we have to put out to get a call? Because that's our main customer lead generation source for the insect control branch. So that's a huge
Okay.
one. Last I checked, it was between 100 and 150, depending on the season.
Okay.
Average ticket is huge as well. We were averaging around $700 to ticket. We never tracked booking rates because I don't remember a lot of leads slipping through the cracks. But that's my feelings. That's not data. We also track closing rates on a spreadsheet. And that was,
Right.
what was interesting about that is we noticed a direct correlation between seasonality. Just it was unbelievable. Right now in April, we would get lots of leads, but we couldn't close it. It was hard to close in April. May hit, all of a sudden we get the bulk of our closes. And then as soon as we get into late June, early July, the lead flow just kind of turns off and then turns back on again in fall.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, when you know that seasonality and you have a good sense of how much money you're bringing in during those high seasons, it helps you budget for the low season so that you're going to be okay, right? If you know what happens every year, then we can, kind of save for a rainy day and prepare as well. So, okay. Yeah, let me move on real quick. And don't worry about that. So I want to do this. I think I kind of already said this, but Peter Drucker, who's kind of the father of American business theory, says if you can't measure it, you can't improve it, right? So look, I think for most of us, I think I speak for probably everybody here, we're so locked in to just doing what we do, right? Because it's hard to get through the day. We're super busy and we got stuff to do and tasks to do, and we're working in the business so much of our time that I think we need to schedule probably time to look at our information and then analyze it and come up with better ways to do things, right? I mean, it wasn't until I started carving out time to work on my business instead of in it all the time that we could actually make good decisions based on real information, right? Obviously, you need a way, a tool to track it, but the tracking doesn't usually take very long. And we don't like to slow down as a general rule long enough to sit there and really think about it. But the thing is that, it's the old saying, whatever, work smarter, not harder, or whatever. Like, if we take a little bit of time, an hour, you could probably do all this in your business in an hour a week, right? And really sat in some deep thought and really looked at your numbers an hour a week, it would probably change how you operate. And it would probably change how you run your business. And you'd probably be seeing, where you're weak and where you're strong, and then you could adjust accordingly. So, to end the class or the 12 weeks, like, I think that kind of goes not just for this lesson, but all of them, especially for us in the operation side. It's easy to do work nonstop and have it be hard and lots of it, I think to stop and think and take a moment and try to collect some information could benefit all of us. Tim Ferriss has my favorite quote from the 4-Hour Work Week. He says, busyness is just a form of laziness, lazy thinking, and indiscriminate action. Right? And that what he's saying there is slow down, stop for a second, think about what you do. Are you just like doing activity for activity's sake, or are you doing activity that actually gets you the result that you want, right? So, I mean, for me, I really never was able to grow the business how I wanted it to be until I dedicated a certain amount of hours each week to looking at my numbers and to really thinking about, like, how do we do this? Is there a better way? Can we do it better? Can we do it faster? Can we do it cheaper? Until I started doing that, it was very difficult to really get the result that I wanted. So anyway, that's enough from my soapbox, but I do plead with everybody to just take time every week to think about working on your business. And I know it's hard, but
Hey, Larry,
it's crucial.
Eric, I just thought about something, because like you just mentioned about making time for things. A couple of months ago, Chuck and he had come into my office and he wanted me to do something, and he was like, I was like, man, I have so much other stuff to do. I don't have time to do it. He says, do you not have time, or you're not making time to do it? And he said to me, and this is his words, because we were roommates back a long time ago, and he would always cook and he would never clean up after himself right away. And I told him, and he threw this back at me, man. Or you don't have time to do the dishes, or you're not making time to do the dishes. And he threw that back at me the other day, and it started making me think about that more often. So yes, every time he asks me to do something, I'll put it on my calendar so I know that I have to do it. So it's definitely you make time to do what you got to do, you know?
No, it's true. I always say this, Ken, is, what is something that none of us would miss? A sales appointment, right? If you run or own a business, if somebody said, "Hey, can you come over and give me an estimate on that?" You're always 100% of the time going to be at that appointment, right? You're not going to be like, "Yeah, I don't have time to go do that sales appointment. I don't need more money," right? You're never going to say that. So if you take the attitude of like, I'm going to block out, whatever, 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever it might be during the week, and view that working on your business time is exactly the same as a sales appointment in importance, that will change how you view it. And that's what I had to do. I had to set aside, an hour here, an hour there. And it was like, that's sacred time. I'm unavailable from 2 to 3 on Tuesday and Thursday, or whatever it might be, right? And look, I'm no different than anybody else in this call. Like, I could find a million reasons not to do it. Like, it's not like I wasn't busy, but are we going to fill our time with busyness, or are we going to fill our time with accomplishment? Right? Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? I try to do at the end of every day now, I learned to do this. I have what I call my activity versus accomplishment meeting with myself, right? And it's like, okay, I worked all day. Did I just run around and check a bunch of meaningless boxes to feel the endorphin rush of going, oh, I got that done. Oop, I got that done. Oop, I got that done, right? And I'm like, yeah, I was so busy today. But did that stuff really yield me any real value, or did I just feel good about myself because I checked a bunch of boxes off? So I try to have a meeting at the end of every day and like kind of recap the day in my head. It's like, did I do lots of activity that really didn't do much for me? Or did I do a couple things that really could help us be better? I try my hardest to have more days where I'm accomplishing something than just doing lots of activity. Look, I'm not saying you don't do any activity. We all have to do activity, right? But the thing is that it is the ratio to activities versus accomplishing the good stuff correct for us. I think that's where it's tough, right? So real quick, we got 5 more minutes. Anybody want to final questions, Josiah?
Yeah, I just wanted to say to emphasize what you're saying about taking time. And you asked me about tracking, and I said, we've been tracking for about 2 weeks. The reason we've been tracking for about 2 weeks is because I broke my leg in January, and I can't do any field work. So, which is why I've been missing a lot of meetings and things like that too in this time frame. But now I'm back at it, and I'm working on the business, and that's all I can do. So
yeah, this might be the greatest thing that ever happened. This might be the best thing that ever happened to you, man.
I know.
I broke my leg and I changed my business, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but like we all need to slow down a little bit. Bill, I haven't called on you. We'll finish with you here. I mean, are you taking time to work on your business each week? I know you're super busy and you're on the truck all the time and it's hard. Are you working on it?
Are you calling on me, Larry?
Yeah.
Eric, I'm sorry.
Recording.
Yep. Yeah, no, I am. I'm
good.
Usually in the mornings, Eric. I'll take some time in the morning. I got probably the last year, ever since I joined the Inner Circle, pretty much up at 5 a.m. So that's kind of my time, and that's where I'm listening to. I'm just working on the business, taking notes, planning the day, listening to, perhaps something like one of these calls that I missed and doing that. And you were talking earlier about our schedules, and it almost seems like, Eric, that I know for me that we have to really be, or I have to really be protective of my time, because we're getting pulled in so many different directions, and kind of like what you're saying, if you just don't control it and honor your time. I mean, it's gonna get filled up doing something else. It's not building
Yep.
your business.
No.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Look,
Uh,
we only have so much time. We have to be very protective over it.
yeah.
It
I'm
matters,
learning that
like,
more
for
and
all of
more.
us. Yep. So
Definitely.
anyway, well, I want to thank you guys all for coming the last 12 weeks, and I hope you gained value out of it, and I hope it was good for you. And you guys know how to get a hold of me if you ever need me. And I just wanted to show my appreciation for all of you to take the time to come. Appreciate it.
We appreciate this course big time, Eric. Thanks so much. It was really good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for putting it on, for hosting it.
No.
It's
Thanks,
good.
guys. Have a great
Thank you.
week.
All
Thank
right.
you
Good
so
one.
much.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep. Bye-bye.